Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me. This is Kathy, and I'm excited to share this video today because it is the first time that I am participating in a Team Tiny video hop. The theme for this month's hop is All Shook Up, so I decided to create a shaker card using some products from Pink and Main, My Favorite Things, Trinity Stamps, and Hello Bluebird. I'll be sure to have all of the products that I used, as well as the Copic markers that I used, listed in the description below. I'll go into more detail about this video hop a little bit later on, but for my card, I started out by stamping the unicorn onto a piece of Cougar Super Smooth cardstock with My Favorite Things Extreme Black Hybrid ink. So to color in the unicorn, the very first thing that I did was I used RV00 to add in areas where I wanted to maintain a nice highlight on the unicorn's mane and tail. I tend to do that with a really light color as a reminder to myself so that when I bring in the darker colors, I don't go too far with the darker colors. After I had those areas highlighted, I brought in V17 and applied that to the areas where I wanted the shadows to be the darkest. For her mane and her tail, I did a flicking motion, but I worked not only from the bottom flicking upwards, but from the very top and also flicked downwards. Next, I brought in V12 and extended the flick marks up a little bit higher or a little bit lower, depending if I went from bottom to top or top to bottom. And I'm making sure to keep that highlight in the center of those areas where I had initially colored in with the RV00. After I was done with the V15, I brought in V12 and added just a little bit more, and then I blended it together with V01. After I got the initial coloring done of her mane and her tail, I did go over it a second time with the same Copic markers, just to darken up some of the areas that lightened up a little bit, and also to add just a little bit more texture by making sure that my flick lines didn't all end in an even row. While I finish up coloring in her mane and her tail, I'll give you a little bit more information about the Team Tiny video hop. Team Tiny is a group of YouTube creators, and we all have less than 1,000 subscribers. So we do these hops on a monthly basis to hopefully help our channels grow. So any likes or comments, subscriptions, we appreciate all of them. To follow along with all the other creators, all you have to do is click on the hashtag that's in the video description below, and that'll give you a list of those who are participating in this particular hop. I encourage you to click on that hashtag and check out the videos because there are some amazing creators within this group, and each of us has our own particular style or technique that we really enjoy. And I'm confident that you'll find more than one new to you creator to subscribe to. Once I was done with her mane and tail, I moved on to coloring her body, and I wanted her to appear to be white. So I used a couple of different warm gray markers. I started with W4, and then I realized that I forgot part of her mane, so I went back to the V17 and the V15 and filled in that little spot really quickly. Then I came in with the W4 and applied that to the areas where there would be the heaviest shadow. So underneath her bangs, I guess I'm going to call them bangs, there would be a shadow under her bangs, and underneath her mane, for her legs that are in the back, I added a shadow there. And I did have more of a shadow on the left side of her face than the right side of her face because there would be more shadows there since she's not facing forward. After I had the darkest shadows added in, I went in with W2 and blended out the W4 just a little bit. Then I moved down to W1 and then blended all of it together with W0. Since I used warm grays for the unicorn's body, I decided to use cool grays to color in her horn. I started with C5 and did a very fine line down either side. I'm trying to keep the highlight in the very center of her horn to keep the appearance that it is curved like a unicorn horn would be. I did do tiny little lines with the C5 on the areas where the unicorn horn would swirl. Then I came in with C3 and blended out the C5 just a tiny little bit. And then I filled in the center of the unicorn horn with C0. And to finish up the coloring, I added a little bit of R20 to the inside of her ear, and then I gave her a tiny little spot of blush on her cheek. Now that all of the coloring is done, I moved on to create the frame for my shaker. I used the Gallery 3 frame from Hello Bluebird, and I ran that through my Gemini Junior machine with a piece of Neenah Classic Crest cardstock. And I altered it a little bit because I didn't want to have 6 small squares. I wanted to have a big square on top and a rectangle on the bottom. So I used my scissors to cut out those inside pieces. After I had those pieces cut out, I used 1/8 inch score tape and put that on the back side of my frame. I was pretty happy that I found score tape in my little adhesive bucket because liquid glue and I usually aren't very good friends. I tend to get it all over the acetate. So it made it much easier for me to adhere the acetate to my frame using score tape. After I had the acetate in place, I had a piece of pink cardstock that I had cut down to 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. I placed the pink cardstock into my stamp platform, and then I used the frame just as a guide so that I could make sure that my sentiment was stamped in the center of that bottom rectangle. To stamp the sentiment, I used VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I did have a little bit of ink transfer to the acetate, so I just used a little bit of rubbing alcohol to clean off the acetate. After I had stamped my sentiment, I set that off to the side. Then I doubled up on my foam tape and started to put that on the back side of my frame. When creating a shaker card, you want to make sure that you get your foam tape really close together and as close to the shaker opening as you can, just to make sure that your shaker bits don't end up falling out. I pounced my anti-static powder tool inside the frame before removing the release paper of the foam tape, just to get rid of some of the sticky on the edges of the foam tape so that my shaker bits wouldn't stick to it. Next, I put my shaker bits inside my frame, and for my shaker bits, I used some purple sequins, and there are actually little unicorn sequins in that purple sequin mix, which I picked it up at Tuesday morning. So if I can find it, I'll try and link to it. The other shaker bits that I used are clay rainbows from Trinity Stamps, and I thought nothing goes better with a unicorn than rainbows. So I did put a few rainbows just in the top part. I was pretty conservative with the sequins in the bottom rectangle because I didn't want my sentiment to be totally covered up. In hindsight, I realized that I could have definitely added a lot more shaker bits to the top big square, but I had already sealed it off by placing my pink cardstock on top of the window, so I just left it as it was. I had run the polka dot paper through my Gemini Junior die cutting machine with the largest stitched rectangle die from the My Favorite Things stitched rectangle die-namics stacks 1, and adhered that to the front of a top folding A2 size note card. And for my note card, I also used 80-pound Neenah Classic Crest cardstock. I used liquid glue to adhere my shaker frame to the front of the card, and then I used more score tape to adhere the unicorn to the front of my card. And what's a unicorn without a little bit of sparkle? So I grabbed my Wink of Stella glitter pen and went over the horn with that, and that finishes up my card for today. Don't forget to click that hashtag in the description below so you can follow along with Team Tiny's All Shook Up video hop. I appreciate you stopping by today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, I'd love it if you would. And don't forget to ring the bell so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.